My name is Rachel. I am 32 years old. And exactly 2 hours ago, I sat in the most exclusive French restaurant in Manhattan, drank a single cup of black coffee, and calmly sent my own flesh and blood to federal prison. They say blood is thicker than water, but in my experience, blood is just a convenient tool people use to drain you dry. To understand the absolute perfection of what happened tonight, you have to understand the decade of psychological torture that led up to it. You have to understand the anatomy of a perfect revenge. 5 years ago, I was completely invisible. I lived in a freezing, windowless studio apartment in the worst part of Queens. The heater never worked, the pipes leaked, I ate cheap, instant rice, I slept maybe 4 hours a night on a mattress on the floor, I poured every ounce of my energy, every single penny I had to my name, into building my artificial intelligence software company. My family thought I was a pathetic joke. My older brother, Lucas, was the golden boy. He was a commercial real estate broker. He wore custom Italian suits. He drove a leased European sports car. He married a woman named Brittany, whose entire existence revolved around country club gossip, expensive cosmetic procedures, and designer bags. My mother worshipped the ground Lucas walked on. To her, Lucas was a financial genius. Lucas could do no wrong. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, they made me the main attraction for their cruelty. I was the cautionary tale. I remember Thanksgiving 2019 perfectly. We were sitting in my mother's massive dining room. Lucas stood up. He clinked his crystal champagne glass with a silver spoon. He made a sarcastic toast to my failing little tech hobby. He told the entire extended family that I was delusional. He said I would be bankrupt by 30. Brittany looked at my cheap thrift store clothes like I was carrying a highly contagious disease. She asked me if I needed to borrow $20 for the subway ride home. My mother never stopped them. She just smiled, patted my hand, and told me I should give up my silly dreams and find a normal secretarial job. When my father passed away, the dynamic shifted from passive-aggressive cruelty to absolute control. Lucas took total command of the family estate. He made sure I received absolutely nothing from the inheritance. He claimed he was protecting the assets. He made sure I knew my place. My place was at the absolute bottom. So I made a decision. I stopped going to the dinners. I stopped answering the phone calls. I cut them off entirely. I locked myself in my freezing apartment and I worked. I wrote code until my fingers bled. I built algorithms. I analyzed predictive financial models. I built a system designed to spot anomalies in corporate spending. Then, the impossible happened. 14 months ago, the algorithm cracked the market. A massive Silicon Valley conglomerate, saw what my software could do. They initiated a hostile bidding war. The deal was finalized on a Tuesday morning in October. By Wednesday afternoon, the wire transfer cleared my bank account. Overnight, my net worth hit $80 million. I was no longer the crazy girl in the windowless apartment. I was the youngest self-made female billionaire in the tech sector. My face was on the cover of national business magazines. When the financial news networks called me a visionary, suddenly my silent phone started ringing. It was my mother, then Lucas, then Brittany. They left desperate, crying voicemails. They sent long, highly emotional text messages. They talked about how much they missed my smile. They talked about how family is the most important thing in the world. They said we needed to heal the past. I am a chief executive officer. I analyze human behavior for a living. I knew exactly what they wanted. So they smelled blood in the water. They smelled money. But a small, stupid, fragile part of my brain wondered if maybe, just maybe, my mother actually missed her only daughter. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet them for one single dinner. They chose Belmont. It is a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Lower Manhattan, the kind of place where a single steak costs $400 and you have to book a table 6 months in advance. For the kind of place where the waiters wear white gloves and look down their noses at you. I arrived precisely at 7 o'clock. I did not wear designer clothes. I wore a simple tailored black dress, no jewelry, no logos. I had absolutely nothing left to prove to anyone. True power does not need to scream. True power whispers. They were already seated at the best table in the center of the dining room. Lucas was aggressively flashing a heavy gold watch. Brittany had her luxury handbag proudly displayed on an empty chair next to her, making sure the logo faced the room. The moment I sat down, the manipulation began. It was a perfectly choreographed dance. Lucas ordered the most expensive items on the menu without looking at the prices. He ordered a $3,000 bottle of vintage Bordeaux wine. Brittany ordered imported beluga caviar. My mother ordered white truffles. They feasted like royalty. They laughed loudly. And they made sure the entire restaurant knew they were important people. I ordered 1 cup of black coffee. I sat back in my velvet chair, I folded my hands, and I watched them. For 2 straight hours, they poured absolute poison disguised as honey into my ears. Lucas told me how proud he always was of my work ethic. He claimed he always knew I would make it big. Brittany called me an inspiration to independent women everywhere. My mother held my hand, squeezed it tight, and cried fake, perfectly practiced tears. She told me she prayed for my success every single night. It was a sickening, terrifying performance. If I did not know the truth, I might have believed them. Then, the dinner plates were cleared. The trap finally closed. Lucas wiped his mouth with a crisp white linen napkin. He cleared his throat. He reached into his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick, glossy legal folder. He slid it across the marble table directly toward me. He put on his best, most persuasive salesman voice. He looked me deep in the eyes. "Rachel," he said smoothly, "I am putting together a massive, highly exclusive commercial real estate fund. Prime Manhattan properties. I am talking billions in returns. I want to let you in on the ground floor, not as an investor, as a partner, because I love you, because family builds wealth together." Brittany leaned forward across the table. Her eyes were wide. "It is a guaranteed win, sweetie. We just want to see you protect your new wealth. The tech market is so volatile." I looked at the glossy folder. I did not touch it. "I am a CEO. I read complex merger contracts for a living." I opened the folder. It took me exactly 15 seconds to scan the fine print and see the absolute truth. This was not an investment portfolio. This was not a real estate fund. It was a guarantor agreement. Lucas wanted me to co-sign a high-risk commercial bridging loan for $5 million. He was trying to use my new $80 million net worth as personal collateral for his own debt. If he defaulted, the bank would legally drain my accounts. I slowly closed the folder. I aligned the edges perfectly with the edge of the marble table. I looked directly at my mother. "Mom," I asked quietly, "did you know about this document?" Right on cue, she started crying again. The tears flowed heavily. She grabbed my wrist. "Rachel, please," she begged, her voice shaking. "Lucas is struggling. The commercial market crashed. He might lose everything, and my health is failing. I have terrible medical bills. The doctors say I need expensive experimental treatments. We need you to sign this. We need you to save us. You owe us this. Family takes care of family." They thought they had me completely cornered. They used public pressure, intense guilt, and a fabricated terminal illness to manipulate my emotions. They looked across the table and they still saw the weak, broke, terrified little sister they used to bully in Queens. They honestly thought I would sign my life away just to buy a fraction of their love. What they did not know was that the girl from Queens died a long time ago. The anger inside me was not hot, it was not loud, it was completely cold. It was absolute, perfect clarity. I did not raise my voice. I did not cause a scene. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. I looked my mother dead in the eyes. "Medical bills?" I asked softly. "That is fascinating, Mom, because I spoke to your primary care physician yesterday morning. He told me you are in perfect health. In fact, he mentioned you just won a tennis tournament at the country club last weekend, and Medicare covers your routine checkups entirely. You do not owe a single dime to any hospital." Her fake tears stopped instantly. The color drained from her cheeks. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked terrified. I slowly turned my head toward my sister-in-law. "And Brittany," I said, my voice completely flat, "how is the luxury lifestyle treating you?" I could not help but notice your handbag sitting on the chair. It is a very impressive counterfeit, but the stitching on the handle is entirely wrong, and it is missing the interior serial number. You bought it on the black market. Just like I know you secretly maxed out 4 different credit cards at Nordstrom last month. Your debt-to-income ratio is astronomical. Brittany gasped loudly. She violently grabbed the fake bag off the chair and shoved it under the table. Her face burned bright crimson. She looked like she was going to vomit. Then I turned my attention to the main event. I looked at Lucas, the golden boy, the tyrant, the man who made my 20s a living hell. I kept my voice low but sharp enough to cut through steel. "You lost your brokerage job 6 months ago, Lucas," I stated calmly. "I know your house in the Hamptons is currently in active foreclosure. I know your sports car was quietly repossessed 2 weeks ago in the middle of the night. I know you are absolutely drowning in debt." He gripped the edge of the marble table. His knuckles turned white. "Shut up," he hissed through his teeth. "Keep your voice down. You do not know anything." I smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of an executioner. "I know absolutely everything," I replied. "I did not get to where I am by being stupid. The exact second you called me last week, I hired an elite team of corporate private investigators. They have been tracking your every move. I know about your 3 bankrupt shell companies in Delaware. I know you owe dangerous people a lot of money." I reached out and tapped the glossy legal folder sitting between us. But here is the grand finale, Lucas, I whispered. I know exactly what you did last Tuesday afternoon. He froze. His eyes darted around the restaurant nervously. I know you already submitted the preliminary loan documents to the investment bank, I continued. And I know you illegally forged my signature on those preliminary documents to force the multi-million-dollar approval process forward. You brought these papers tonight to cover your tracks after the fact. The last drop of blood vanished from his face. He looked like a dead man sitting in a tailored suit. The arrogant, condescending smirk he wore for 30 years was completely or permanently gone. Wire fraud, I pronounced the words slowly, letting them hang in the air. Identity theft, forgery, major federal crimes, Lucas, carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 to 15 years in federal prison. He started shaking violently. The golden boy was literally trembling in his chair. Rachel, please, he begged. His voice cracked. He sounded like a terrified child. I was going to replace the documents tomorrow after you signed these. The bank never had to know. Nobody has to know. Please, we are blood. We are family. I slowly stood up. I looked down at the three of them. 3 pathetic, broken strangers who thought they could outsmart a predator. I forwarded the private investigator's entire dossier, including the forged bank documents and the shell company tax records, directly to the white-collar crime division of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I said clearly. I sent it 2 hours ago. They were extremely interested. My mother screamed my name. It was a horrible, guttural sound. Lucas jumped out of his chair. You cannot do this to me. I am your brother, he yelled. I reached into my small black clutch purse. I pulled out a single, crisp $10 bill. I dropped it onto the white tablecloth, right next to his fraudulent contract. The $10 covers my black coffee, I said. You figure out the rest. I turned my back on them. I walked away. My heels clicked rhythmically against the polished hardwood floor. It was the best sound I had ever heard. It sounded like absolute freedom. I did not look back. Not once. Not when my mother started sobbing hysterically. Not when Lucas started cursing my name. As I reached the heavy glass front doors of the restaurant, I heard the satisfying voice of the maitre d' approaching their table. I am so sorry, sir, the manager said loudly, but all 5 of your credit cards have just been declined for the $3,000 bill. I am going to need an alternative form of payment immediately, or I will have to call the police. I stepped out into the freezing Manhattan night. The cold air felt incredible on my skin. I got into the backseat of my waiting car. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked at the illuminated screen. It was a text message from my lead attorney. The message read, FBI agents have officially opened the file. Warrants are being drafted now. I locked my phone. I leaned my head back against the leather seat. I closed my eyes. People say family is everything. People say you have to forgive blood. But tonight, as I rode through the city lights, I learned a much more valuable lesson. Forgiveness is for people who make mistakes. Our justice is for people who make choices. And revenge? Revenge is simply a perfectly executed business transaction. And tonight, business was booming.